some updates and some rumors regarding the upcoming HBO original series that's going to essentially reboot Harry Potter. We've known about this series for quite a while now, and we know that HBO is moving fast and furious on this series, and they have deemed it a decade-long project that's going to essentially readapt all of the original books that J.K. Rowling wrote in the 90s and the 2000s, which of course have already been adapted into the feature films, which were huge global successes. But now they're returning to the story. And because it is going to be a television show, that does technically provide them with a bit more of a canvas to kind of flesh out these stories. But there's been some casting rumors that are floating around, and I do want to emphasize these are just rumors. Nothing has been confirmed. This is all just like speculation, but I think it's important enough to talk about because we're starting to possibly see what the show might look like and what it might entail. So as I mentioned, this will be an HBO original, and it's going to be available to stream on Max. Casey Bloys, the current chairman of HBO and HBO Max content, he added that the series would, quote, deep dive into each of the iconic books, and the showrunner, Francesca Gardner, promises that we will, quote, see things that we haven't seen, end quote. Production for the series has officially been announced. It's going to be slated for midsummer of 2025. One of the directors of the show is going to be Mark Mylod from Succession. He was the showrunner of that show. Francesca Gardner was also a frequent creative behind the scenes on Succession. She wrote a number of the episodes. I believe she was a director as well. J.K. Rowling will be serving as an executive producer. I know people have feelings about that, of course. And they did officially announce that the show will return to Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden for filming. Really the only place they can go. I've been to the Warner Brothers studio tour in Leavesden. It's iconic. It's incredible. All those original sets are still there. That's the place that they have to film. It's right outside of London. This is obviously going to be a massive, massive British production. And they did recently also speak about, casting information, not confirmations, but information. We have now learned that more than 30,000 people applied to be cast as one of the main members of the main trio, either Harry, Ron, or Hermione. According to the creators of this new show, they're currently still being auditioned. Nobody's been picked yet. They said that they are going through, I think, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 casting tapes a day, which is just insane and ridiculous. But they're obviously looking for mostly British and Irish actors here. 30,000 is just unbelievable. I actually sent this casting information to my niece, my brother's daughter, and he said, we're never fucking doing that ever. Like, there's no fucking chance we're putting her out to pasture for this type of show, because it's a huge undertaking. But to move on beyond that, Francesca Gardner, the showrunner and director, Mark Mylod, they did reveal that they're going to plan to stick to canonical ages for the show. So, for example, the character of Severus Snape, who was 31 in the books, they will find somebody that's around that same age. That was not the case for Alan Rickman. By the time he took on that role, he was in his mid-50s. So they're going to try to stick to canonical ages here. And even characters like the Dursleys, they were older in the movies, but they're going to actually go back to those canonical ages. They're going to be younger than they were in the films in this show. Now, there's some other information that's come out. Again, these are all rumors, and these are the the real juicy things that I want to talk about. So right now, there's a lot of rumors floating around about some of the older characters that are going to be part of this show. Some of the main characters that we know outside of the main trio, of course. Right now, the two main names that are circling the role of Albus Dumbledore are Mark Rylance and Mark Strong. Initially, Mark Rylance was kind of the first name that came out, and then just over the past few days, Mark Strong emerged as a potential other contender for the role of Albus Dumbledore. Minerva McGonagall, currently right now, the rumor is that Sharon Horgan might portray this particular character. She's one of the headmistresses, of course, at Hogwarts, a very, very pivotal character. And Rubius Hagrid right now is being rumored to be played by Brett Goldstein from Ted Lasso. If you've seen Brett Goldstein, the guy is he's not a big guy. He's actually pretty fit and, pretty in pretty good shape. And so this is definitely something that would be a lot different. And then last but certainly not least, what we just recently heard, another rumored name, again, not confirmed, but a rumored name, Papa Acedu is currently being rumored to play the role of Severus Snape, one of the headmasters, of course, at Hogwarts, and obviously another very pivotal character. We'll get to the Severus Snape conversation, because that is a piece of the puzzle that we have to break down. Let's start off, with your thoughts just about everything that's happening right now. They're moving very, very fast on the show. It's happening. 30,000 people auditioning for the main trio, which we still don't know who that's going to be. But how are you feeling about things right now? And how are you feeling about these rumored names? Just like when you look at the names and you look at the roles that they might potentially portray in the show, what are your thoughts on this Harry Potter TV show so far?
Yeah, man. Just at first, this show in general is it's a huge undertaking. It's still very interesting that they decided to do this so quickly. But again, by the time we see the show, maybe I don't feel that way anymore. Maybe I'm like, oh, it's been so long. We need let's do Harry Potter again, everybody. I still don't necessarily feel that way. And I say it's a huge undertaking because when they do cast the original trio that we had, we're going to be like, who the hell are these people? No matter what they look like, to me, we're going to be like, who are these people? And I think I'm going to feel like that, at least anyway, for no matter who they cast in any of these roles. Harry Potter is just a thing that we see every year. We watch every year. We have these people baked into our minds. We know what they look like. And so I think it'll be interesting just to see how we have to rewire our brains a little bit to kind of fit some other people in some other facades into that mold. And also, this is like they're trying to get closer to the books, I guess. And it's like, oh, we're gonna see some new things, and I think that's fine. And I think that makes sense if you're gonna do this thing again. If it's going to be a television series, give us some of those details and things that were left out that people care about. But I think that's the important part. Like, make sure we care about them and make sure it's like, oh yeah, we haven't seen that before. Make it a thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, cool. We didn't see that. I'm glad y'all put that in there. I hope all of that feels like that. But these showrunners and directors and stuff, 10 out of 10. I mean, the thing is about this whole production, I feel like they're doing almost everything right. The showrunners are fire. The director is fire. Like, I love the team that they're building. It really is just everything around it. That's just like, dang, we're really doing this thing. Casting rumors, man, they're fine. I think these are cool changes in the story. I would say. I like the idea of Mark Rylance as Dumbledore. I'm like, yeah, give me Mark Rylance as Dumbledore. I think he makes a ton of sense as Dumbledore. He's been everything he's in. I like, and he kills it to me. And I can see him in the getup of being Dumbledore. I can see him playing that role actually very well. Not so much Mark Strong, but Mark Rylance I see absolutely. The Hagrid stuff, I don't know. Is it gonna be in a fat suit? Like, maybe that's a difference for Brett Goldstein. I don't know what the choices are there. And then Sharon Horgan as Minerva. I don't know if I'm bought there either. So right now, I'm a little bit of a mixed bag. Some things make sense, some things don't. I think, of course, when we see it, everything will be different. And I could say, yeah, that's it. But so far, it's just a mixed bag.
My brain can't process any of this. Like, my brain is just broken about all this shit. Anytime a new name emerges, I'm like, immediately, no, reject it. No, I'm not. I can't wrap my mind around this.
It's weird.
Harry Potter is really one of the only things in pop culture in terms of the movies where, I mean, my God, the casting for those movies.
They got it.
I think that it might be the greatest British cast ever assembled for anything ever, period, full stop. And everybody was so pitch perfect in their roles, from obviously the main three to everybody else, Robbie Coltrane and Michael Gambon coming after, the great Richard Harris and Maggie Harris, like Alan Rickman, like the list just goes on and on and on. And I'm just like, they just did such a tremendous job. And at a certain point, this is what's all interesting, is that people who read the books, especially when they came out, and you get the descriptions of the character, you start to build what that character looks like in your mind. And it's hard to extrapolate that at any point in time from the representation that's going to come across on screen. But by and large, what I've heard from most fans who read the book and then saw the movies, they're like, yeah, that looks like him. That's how I imagined him. That tracks, all of that stuff. Like, nobody ever really had any significant criticism. In fact, like, their really only major change was the change from Richard Harris to Michael Gambon after Richard Harris had an untimely passing. But now those films have just had such cultural resonance. They've been around for so long and they were so hugely successful. To now get new names finally and start to see some of these people that are going to step into these roles, I just can't even process it and get there yet. That's
Mhm.
honestly where I'm at with things. And so it's hard for me to even have a reaction, or at least an unbiased, fair reaction about any of this stuff. I will say that the Albus Dumbledore aspect of it, I do think Mark Rylance would be the better choice of the two. I like Mark Strong a lot. What I fear
Mhm.
though is that he might be running the risk of overexposure. You know, he was just in
Yeah.
The Penguin. He's in Dune Prophecy
Mhm.
right now. He's an incredible actor, and he deserves all the work in the world. And one of the things HBO does, they do take care of their talent. They take care of the talent that circle back, and they frequently reuse them. That would also possibly explain Papa Esedu. But I do think Mark Rylance would be a better choice. Brett Goldstein. I love his aura. I love his swagger. I love his characteristics. It's just hard to
Mhm.
obviously see him be somebody that's of a bigger physical stature.
Exactly.
And he is shorter too. Like he's not even
Yeah.
like a tall guy. And Rubius Haggard is a gigantic individual. Not only is he big, from a physical standpoint, he's tall as well. And so I don't know what the idea would be there if in fact he is going to be the lead. And Sharon Horgan, I actually haven't seen enough of her work to really judge. But I do think that, again, this is another example of like somebody where it's just hard to not see Maggie Smith in the
It's
role.
very hard.
Like she just did it so well and so exceptionally. I'm just like any idea and any name that comes across, I'm just like, okay. But this is obviously a reality. This is just going to be, I think, difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, the other piece of the conversation is Papa Esedu potentially being the person that's being circled for the role of Severus Snape. Now, where to start? So obviously in the book, Severus Snape is described as a greasy, pale-skinned, very skinny individual. Pale skin means white. Like that. There's no fabricating that. Papa Esedu is a very dark-skinned man. He's a black man, a black British man. So this would be race swapping the character, which is definitely a choice and an interesting one at that, considering that the creators behind the show have said that they plan to stay very, very, very faithful to the books. Like they plan to be very faithful, even down to the canonical ages. But this would be a huge change. Race swapping the character. He is a little bit younger. He's 34 right now, I believe, but he's coming off of some incredible work. He was a part of I May Destroy You, great, great HBO series. Right now, he's also like in a couple of episodes of Black Doves on Netflix. I've heard a lot of good things about that. He's in Gangs of London. He's done some really, really great stuff, especially in the television realm. And I think he's a tremendous actor. But
Mhm.
this is definitely a big swing if they do decide to move forward with him and he does take on this role of Severus Snape, who is one of, if not, potentially the most important character in this whole saga. Let's just be frank
Right.
about it. What are your thoughts on this, man? This is obviously a big change, and it's definitely stoked the fires from the people of the world who don't want to see, a black Severus Snape. Like, let's just, put it
Yeah.
bluntly out there. Like, a lot of people don't want that. For I think some legitimate reasons, but also there's definitely the races that are showing themselves at this point. That's just going to be a part of it. We've not been new to that. That's been a consistent thing, unfortunately, when this happens. But yeah, what are your thoughts on just him potentially being the person that might step into this role?
It's funny. All we asked for was Black Hermione, man. This is what we get. We get Black Snape instead. No, it's oh man, it's so interesting because, like you said, I think there are two sides. Of course, there is the racists that are like, you race bend anything, and they're gonna have a problem with it. And Papa Esidu is a very good actor, very 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 good actor. Like you said, I May Destroy You. He's some other. He's in some other British projects that are. He's also exceptional, but man, this is it's just interesting to say the least. Like you said, the description in the book is like you said, he's pale skin and this and that, and also is the whole thing is of another. We got another. Now we're race bending a character, and instead of getting somebody that's a hero, it is like another character that, for the most part, plays somewhat of a villain throughout the story of Harry Potter. Like he is a somewhat a Harry Potter antagonist, at least until you figure out, why he does what he does. It's like, man, dude, why are you like this? And so, I just don't understand the choice completely. I think they are trying to get a younger actor, somebody who's good, and he fits those things. But I'm not sure. I understand if he does fit what Severus Snape is supposed to bring to that role. And yeah, man, I think there is a world where maybe he does a great job. Everything looks good. Everything is like, yeah, he's cool, but I don't know if he'll ever feel as right as people are going to want him to. And I think that's also a thing. It's like, are we forcing this thing too heavily for him to come into this role? And I think another one of the things for me that's frustrating in casting a black actor here is we're doing a retelling of Harry Potter and not maybe trying to explore a different world within Harry Potter with kind of the same feel and same love. I think that there was something there, and there are other stories out there like Ouagadougou, this whole Hogwarts and Africa. He could have been in that. I don't know. It's just like we're doing something completely different here. I think is interesting. So yeah, man. We'll have to see what happens, but yeah, it's an interesting one to say the least.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, just so that I'm clear about my stance, I don't need a black Severus Snape, period. Don't need it. Didn't ask for it. It does not do anything for me personally to see a black actor step into this role that has vividly been described as a white man in the books. Yep. I also have no issue with sticking to what the books set out to do and how they describe these characters. I have no problem with keeping intact the faithful representations of what they look like. That's how it's written. That's how this story has been told. And they've decided to adapt this and go back to this and tell the story over again. So be it. On top of that, there are a number of black characters in Harry Potter in that story. Mm-hmm. And in the books, they are described as such. They are described as black and they're noted in that way. We've seen them like Kingsley Shacklebolt. There's numerous black students in Hogwarts. All of that stuff is a thing. And so the idea of a black man stepping into the role of Severus Snape, a role that wasn't necessarily designed that way, my ultimate question from it is, you know, whether or not that this is actually something that is a genuine move in terms of like what they're trying to do with the character and how they're trying to like maybe do something different, or if it's just like race swapping for the sake of doing it, which I, you know, mm-hmm. to be honest, I think that's what a lot of Hollywood has done. They've just race bend or race swap just because, not really because it's like driven or motivated by anything genuine. It's just like, well, you know, we kind of want to give other opportunities to maybe some people of color, some black actors, some actors from other, you know, sort of other groups of people, which it can be fine, but I mean, there's always the point and tact in which you can say like, well, we should just be creating new characters first and foremost. Like that should be the starting place to just like insert somebody into a character that's historically just been a white character. Mm-hmm. What does that really do? And so like, I'm not excited about this like whatsoever. Even if he does do a great job at it, which I'm sure he will, even if he is like phenomenal, I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job in the role. But like, I don't need this. I don't need him to step into somebody that you know, we just see him differently in that particular way. I think the other thing about this whole thing is the fact that when this happens, when we see black actors or actresses, or I mean, really people of color in general, that this has happened to, when they step into these roles, especially a part of these large franchises, there's not like they're gonna face a lot of criticism and scrutiny from the fan bases. There's gonna be sexism and racism across the board. There's never any plans intact or in place from the studios that hire them to make sure that they're protected and to keep them from experiencing all the bullshit that's gonna come their way. And we've seen this happen a lot of times in Star Wars and Lord of the Rings recently. Like all of this always happens where these actors come out and they start deactivating their social media and they get all of these heinous comments. Now, they certainly don't have to engage in that stuff. Like, you know, you don't have to expose yourself to that if you know, if you choose not to. But at the same time, like, they're going to get a lot of hate for this. And Papa Asadu might be in for a really, really tough ride, at least in the initial stages, if this does turn out to be true. Like, are we going to make sure that this guy is okay? You know, are we going to make sure that he's going to be good if he does take up this role and the racists pop out and they decide to say all the stuff that they want to say and they just, you know, spew any racist rhetoric that's going to go unchecked? Like what's going to happen there? And I don't know if anything can be done, but I just don't like that might be a possibility for him. And I don't understand. I don't even know if he understands that that's going to be a thing. Maybe he does. Maybe he's fully aware, like, hey, that might be a possibility and I have to deal with it. But yeah, that's just kind of my thing that I'm just like, I don't ever feel good about that. But with like this race swapping thing that happens in general in Hollywood, what are your thoughts about that? Like, do you feel that this is like actually a progressive thing? Like characters that have, you know, been changed out from what canonically, I guess they've been in previous representations. Like we just went through this as well with Halle Bailey and the Little Mermaid. She went through a lot of shit as well. I mean, what do you think about this as a practice? Because it's been a thing for a while now. It's not new. It's been going on for at least 10 years in a major way. Do you think it's progressive, or do you think it's just all like performative shit, that's happening from the standpoint of the studios and the filmmakers?
I think it's sometimes it's situational. For instance, if you get if a role is being made, I think, available, and there are no cultural ties to that role, why wouldn't I pick the best person available? Why does it have to be tied to anything at all? But I think it is hard when there is a history of what's happening and going on there, and the history of Halle Bailey. Why's the mermaid got to be white? I don't, you know what I mean? And I think that's a little different versus Snape, who has been in the book described as a white man. It's like, yeah, that should probably just be white man. Make him a white man. That's interesting. But there is a practice in race bending where if there's something that you can change the character to make them more interesting and culturally significant, I think in that way, then I think that's okay too. I think it just depends on the what's happening here. And I think people use it wrong, and some people use it for okay reasons. It just depends on what that means. And I think even initially, when people even found out what Miles Morales was, it was like, whoa, Spider-Man is black. Like, what is going on here? Whoa, where's Peter Parker? What the hell? But then now he's like the most beloved Spider-Man in the world. You know what I mean? Like, things change, and I think there are always moments in times in which to do something right and to which to do something wrong. So race bending has also been a mixed bag, because sometimes we're like, we gotta do this DEI thing and forcibly have this character be black, when a lot of times that's not what we're asking for. If the role calls for somebody who's white, that's fine, make them white. That's not what we're looking for at all. And so I've been of two minds about it for that reason, because a lot of people just sometimes I'm like, if you don't understand it, let's just not do it anymore, if that makes sense. Like, if you don't get it, what we're asking for, then let's just move on. But I have seen instances and where it works and where it does make sense. It just depends.
And in the case of Miles Morales, that you just brought up, that's an original creation. That's a new character, so there will still be people that are mad about it, obviously, like, oh yeah, Spider-Man is black or whatever. Like, you'll never be able to silence those people. But at the end of the day, you can always say he is his own person. He's his own character. There's not any changes to Peter Parker. Peter Parker is always going to be there. However, here's a new character. And in this particular instance, I'm just like, again, really, why? I just don't understand the why behind it. And perhaps they didn't think that much behind. Like, let's just say Papa Sadu has already auditioned and they saw him and they're like, yeah, he's an incredible performer and we just want to go with this guy. That can also be fair and true if he just, was the best performer that they got. But again, my second point that I raised would still have to be like, all right, well, what considerations are we putting in place for the fact that a large amount of the fan base is not going to be happy about this, and secondly, this can become somewhat dangerous in a certain respect for him in terms of just his mental stability and his health, in terms of what he might be exposed to. And I don't even know if he's on social media. He might not even be a part of this world at all, so it might not even matter. But that's just like another piece of it that I think we just have to always consider a part of this conversation. But ultimately, again, these casting rumors, this is just a project that I'm just like, I can't even wrap my head around it yet. I do love the creators behind it. I love that they are seemingly taking care of this property. You have to. It is one of the most beloved properties in the world right now. But it's just one of those things that has a huge uphill battle. I think maybe more so than other things we've seen recently in terms of like big pop culture phenomena. This is going to be it's going to be difficult, I think, for them to win over a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of like side eyeing as more casting comes out, as more information comes out. But we'll ultimately have to see.